Hi, it's Kelly Walker with Hustle and Pro here in Frisco, Texas. I'm with Chris today at Health in the Real World podcast. We're talking about, is balancing it all a myth? And how do you stay focused to achieve your health goals?
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Hello and welcome to the Health in the Real World podcast. We're here today with Kelly Walker. Kelly's a repeat guest. It's been a few months. It's been a while, right, Kelly?
I was going to say a year at least, but
maybe a year. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of months.
Lots of months. Well, thank you for joining me again. I appreciate you coming out, and you are in the world of sports. Why don't you give everyone a quick intro as far as what you do in the world of sports?
Okay, sure. Yeah. And thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk to you again. So in the world of sports, I am in Frisco, Texas, which is a northern suburb of Dallas, Texas. And I am kind of in the middle of this world of sports. In my fairly little town, it's now growing and growing and growing, one of the fastest growing, but we have a lot of pro sports here. The Dallas Cowboys world headquarters is 2 miles that way from my house. It's on the same corner as where the Dallas Stars NHL hockey team is headquartered in their ice, not where they play. They play in the American Airlines Center with the Mavs down in Dallas, but everybody kind of works up here and lives up here and practices up here. They're in the same building as the Dallas Mavericks G League team, which is called the Texas Legends. Behind them is our Frisco Rough Riders, which is our Texas Rangers MILB AA baseball team. So one exit north of all that is our MLS team, which is FC Dallas, the soccer team. Yep. There's others too, but those are the big ones. And then mixed in all that is a huge school district. Frisco has 65,000 kiddos with 12 high schools with an enormous amount of high school sports going on all the time and really competitive in this whole area up here of North Texas. So I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of sports. And so I get to be involved hosting a weekly sports podcast where we really are highlighting sports story. Not stories as in here's what happened in the Cowboys game last week, but more like here's a story about an up and coming player, either a high school player who's done something outstanding or just committed to go do something big in college, or a pro player on one of those teams I mentioned, and talk about their journey thus far and obstacles and injuries and all the things that come along with, when you love to talk about sports, all that stuff comes up.
That's great. And doing a podcast format like that, you can really dive deep. I'm sure you're talking about one player for 15, 20, 30 minutes, right?
They're pretty short formats. I do about 20, 25-minute episodes. And so if I'm talking one-on-one with a guest, it's usually an athlete. It's called From Youth to Pro. So it could be any of those ranges of ages that I was talking about. But yeah, we get to dive into some topics like if they played multi-sports as a child, or what grade or age were they in when they focused on the sport that they went pro in, and how did they know, and how were those decisions made, or tell me about your story being drafted to the pros or your contract or whatever, or injuries and obstacles that they came into. But then, I get to dig deep into other kind of personal side of athletes too, if they have a specific passion, charity or nonprofits that they support and why. There's always some fascinating stories as to why a player feels connected to a certain topic, or September being Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, talking to a pro athlete about why he has that tugging at him and why he helps raise money for that. So we get to dig into some kind of off the field or off the court topics that you might not otherwise know about these players.
Is that the name of your podcast, From Youth to Pro?
Nope. It's called Hustle and Pro.
That's right. Hustle and Pro. So From Youth to Pro is kind of like a segment title. Yeah. And it's primarily been Frisco specific. The athletes I'm talking to are usually here locally, but I have branched out. In this summer, I literally went the farthest
I was talking to someone, a rugby player in France. So did a little from Frisco to France. And that's just kind of special and some rare when we're not necessarily here in town, but maybe they're a professional we're talking about athletes' mental health, and they're a professional coming from the Olympic training facility. And so they're not here in Frisco, but we're still going to talk to them. So we mostly focus on a local angle, but sports is universal. And, as long as somebody has a cool story to talk to me about, I'll talk to them.
That's awesome. And I think sports, my podcast called Health in the Real World, we don't really gear at sports necessarily, but I think sports definitely taught me about discipline, about consistency, which just makes it easier to do what I do now as a trainer, and then also to keep myself healthy. Have you noticed any themes like that? You're cataloging these athletes from, talking about when they were young to now they're pros. I'm sure there's some themes that run deep in there as far as how to achieve success by making your body healthy and fit.
For sure. Nutrition comes up a lot. And, I've had some really interesting conversations with nutritionists about specifically from the lens of a youth athlete and some trending ways that they're eating, some trending diets that maybe that isn't a good thing. But if it's the way that some maybe young ladies or young men are changing the way that they eat or don't eat carbs or eat certain proteins, all these different things, that's a definite theme, because that is immediately impact performance, right? And training or energy level on the field or whatever. So nutrition is definitely a big part of sports. I mean, especially at the highest level. I actually get fascinated with what athletes eat, pro athletes especially, and what they don't eat. I'm kind of more of what you don't eat is more important to me of what you're eating. When I started my health journey, which is what we mostly talked about last time, that was where I was starting at, was what am I putting in my body and how is it affecting not only the way I like my weight, but just the way I feel and the way I look. And so I started eliminating certain things from my diet. And so the more I've gotten through that journey, I pay attention to that more and more. After I kind of got through the piece of maybe I'm not going to eat red meat, maybe not going to eat this kind of this and this. Now I focus more on, the more fine tuning things like organic, right? I don't need all the pesticides and all the other things that could be in all the foods that I'm eating. So that is definitely a common theme, nutrition. And also with sports and athletes is mindset and just perseverance. Sorry, I'm unhooking here because it's easier for me to hear you this way. But the ability to push through difficult situations is a common theme that I'm getting from all my athletes, no matter what their circumstance is, right? So yeah, that's it has to do with health, because that's another thing that I noticed in my own personal journey is the consistency has to be there for me to stay healthy. That's with what I'm eating, but also with my workout regimen. And if I don't have a consistent plan and kind of have my own little mini, training schedule like an athlete, I can't expect results. And for me, results aren't being a pro athlete, and I don't need performance results. I just need my own personal goals. Right.
Right. I agree. Those are some of the things that are most interesting to me is what people eat, because we literally are what we eat. That becomes part of our muscles. And obviously you're not going to like gain muscle and gain a great physique without working out as well. But the nutritional aspect is really important. I spoke to a football player, NFL football player, maybe 6 months ago as one of my interviews. And we talked off the air, and he was eating 7 meals a day, like big plated meals per day. And I asked why he didn't do protein drinks. And he said, the reason is because the NFL is so heavily regulated with their supplement, guide and laws and stuff. And you don't actually know what's in a protein powder. Like they could literally slip stuff in. So he said, most guys don't do protein powder because of that, because it's not as regulated as food. So he was eating 7 huge meals a day, and you can tell he's huge arms, right? And secondly, what you said about just mindset. Everybody knows that you need consistency. It's just the mindset to get you to that consistency. You have to talk to yourself in a certain way every single day. The days you don't feel like working out, still got to go work out. You know, it depends
Right.
on what level you're at and how
Yeah.
much leeway you give yourself, right?
And what you've committed to yourself.
Yes.
That is another parallel with personal health and, and then like professional sports world is the sacrifice. So you have to, when you've made your decision, whatever your goal is, you have to understand at that point, am I okay with making certain sacrifices?
Right.
And I mean, on a small scale for me, it's just what choices am I making? Am I positive that when I go to this event, I am not going to have the dessert, right? Or whatever, maybe a small, tiny thing, or maybe I'm sacrificing an entire night out or an entire trip or something, whatever it is. But I have to understand that going into it and stick with, and just sort of peel away the things that aren't that important, that aren't going to get me to my goals. And maybe it's like with alcohol. It's one of those other things I've peeled so much away. I've just realized it isn't a top priority for me to go out and have like several drinks anymore. I'm also getting really old and I just don't do well anymore with lots of alcohol. But,
Right.
A drink might be all I want and all I give myself, and all I need, because I just, the feeling good and the other health parts of my life are just more higher prioritized now.
Right. I don't know who it was, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger or some very high level bodybuilder, I think, says that what was it, that cookie doesn't taste as good as healthy feels, right?
For sure.
And you get to
Right.
that point, and I think you alluded to this earlier on about, you start where you start, and then you just take one step at a time. Like now you're kind of streamlining, you're going more organic. But when you first started, maybe it was just cutting out cookies or, whatever example, or maybe doing one
Less
drink
fried
instead of
food.
three. Less
Yeah.
fried food. Yeah.
Right. Like a baby
So,
step, first big
right.
step, right?
You take a baby step. And I wrote a nutrition book and it was just 7 steps. And I said, don't even think about step 2 until you've mastered step 1.
Yep.
And step 1 was it was just like drink more water. And it was here's your quota of water. And unless you've done that for 3 weeks straight, like you don't need anything else, right?
You're
Drink more
exactly
water.
right. Yep. The 21 days, the 3 weeks of building a good habit. And when I feel that I'm getting off track, and I just mean feel as if a pair of jeans feels tight or whatever, or if I'm looking in the mirror and I just see it on my face, I see it on my face first. I go back to step 1. Am I drinking all the water I'm supposed to be drinking?
Yeah, that's good.
Am I drinking other things? Am I drinking sugary or, even if it's a health drink, is it something else that's taking place of water in my life? That is always like, I go back to make sure that's a reset and sort of start that over, cut out just all those extra things that I just sort of slip in there over time or over a long weekend or something. This past weekend was my birthday. So I ate too much and did all the extra things.
Good. And you should do that.
Not overboard, but you have to have a way to reset yourself.
Yes.
If you have to know yourself and your plan and your goal well enough, your health plan, to be able to quickly reset. And it doesn't have to take 21 days to rebuild all those habits, but if you're staying consistent, it shouldn't take more than a few days to get back on track,
Right. And I think you alluded to something there as well about, and I just lost my train of thought as that car went by. Okay. It'll come back in a minute. But yeah, you're right. If you're going along on a steady click and you have a birthday weekend or whatever it is, then that birthday weekend becomes just the still pond, and you throw a rock in and pretty soon the ripples are going to stop and you're good. And then you go back to your healthy habits.
Yep. When you were talking about the athlete, I think you were talking about an NFL or former NFL player.
Yeah.
I believe that fully, because there are so many things that they're tested for. You hear this like in the cycling world too, and all these things that they say they don't know what's in them, or they don't understand the testing and why certain things would be positive. But it's too risky when you're at that level. You have to know exactly what you're putting in your body. Many teams will have nutrition like supplements on site, right, in training facilities, and that's all those athletes use for that, where they're like controlled, a little bit more controlled. Otherwise there can be 65 different ingredients in a protein pack that you don't know what is going to be flagged on some tests that you don't even know what day it's coming either. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. I do use protein powder. That is part of my kind of one of my tips of staying on track with my health journey. is protein powder. I use a specific brand that I love because I feel that it works for me. When I am consistently either using a shake every day, or this morning I baked some into some pumpkin banana, I had some old bananas, so I baked them into some protein banana pumpkin muffins. I know that it controls a lot of things, my weight, my food intake, my calorie intake, how long I feel full, all those things. And so I think that's an important key that somebody needs to find, so that it's also a good reset. If I get a few days away from my shakes, I can feel that too. So, I even take the little packets on me when I'm out of town, just to make sure that I do have like a simple, healthy breakfast option. And so I'm not stuck somewhere, not feeling well. Yeah.
That's awesome. What protein do you use?
I drink Shakeology for
Okay, yeah, I've heard of
several
them.
years now. Yeah, I have the cookies and cream flavor, the new one, in my pantry right now. And I do a lot of overnight oats with the chocolate, and then vanilla for kind of anything else. I just don't want it to have much of a flavor. But I'm kind of obsessed right now with overnight oat with a little bit of plant-based milk, usually almond, some water, pumpkin puree, overnight oats, some chia seeds, and a pack of protein powder. And
That
it's
sounds
like
great.
real thick and dense. I cover it and put it in the fridge overnight. And that's my either breakfast or dessert for nighttime.
Nice. And that'll plump up into like a pudding almost with those chia seeds, right?
It's a pudding. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like it's a pudding, but it feels like a decadent dessert, but I know it's really
Yeah.
healthy because I put everything in it. And it's like, I'm kind of obsessed with it. I make them like, sometimes I'll do 2 at a time so that I have a few days worth, because they need to sit in there overnight. But yeah, I mean, that protein powder, it just saves me a lot of the time, because I can bake with it, cook with it, just drink it if I need to just drink it. But it's also a nice way to throw spinach in my shakes. I don't want to eat a lot of spinach by itself,
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, you can kind of
Just
trick
not my
yourself.
favorite. So I can throw it in there, or throw a different veggie, or all the fruits and things. And it's really good. You just get used to it, and you start to love it over time. So that's where I'm at with my Shakeology.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to do is blend up vegetables. And I was vegan for a while. I actually was like raw vegan for almost a year, about 10 years ago. And it's a really energizing way to eat. I wasn't getting enough calories, so I wasn't able to add on any muscle. In fact, I think I lost some, but I felt just so energetic all the time. But there was a certain point where I got tired of taking an hour to eat my salads that were literally as big as a football helmet. Like, they were enormous. And I just threw the whole salad in the blender, blended it and chugged it real quick. And I said, well, that
That's
was
funny.
nice. That was very nice.
That is a different way to eat it. But yeah, I'm similar. So I don't eat animal products at all. And it's been that way off and on, but really like committed. When, January, veganuary, whatever you call it, was really big
Nice.
this year here in 2021. So I committed that at that point, just to see. I already cut out meats for a while. So I thought, how hard is it for the cheese and the dairy? I didn't do much dairy except for in my cheese. So I went down that road in January, and I just don't, I don't want to like say, oh, I'm going back to regular cheese, because I feel so good. Like you said, I don't have the issue with the calories or the gaining muscle. I don't want to gain muscle. I lift weights every other day, 8, 10, 12 pound weights, just to keep a tone, like a strength training tone level. But I don't want to gain a bunch of muscle, so I don't have the same issue that you went up against. But I don't love eating a bunch of salads. And it's one of my pet peeves when I go to a restaurant and I either look at the menu or I ask the waitress, what options do you have? Because a lot of the times they're not on the menu for a vegan diet or whatever. And like, I cannot stand the answer of, I mean, we have salads and you can just take off the chicken that we're going to charge you for, and you can take off the cheese and you can take off the bacon. And basically they're going to bring me lettuce and a tomato.
Yeah.
And then like, I'm just like so over that. I went to a great vegan restaurant this weekend that I just love it, because you can order anything you want on the whole menu and it's all vegan. And it was so refreshing to not have to go through that whole routine. But yeah, I'm not just here to eat salads. That gets really, really old. So yeah, I understand. I can relate to that with you.
Yeah, it really does get old. I've loosened the belt a little bit with what I eat. I'm like trying to build muscle right now. But yeah, that makes sense, where you are not necessarily trying to gain muscle. You're just wanting to stay at that weight.
Yeah.
And that would be the one thing that I tell people if they do want to go vegan and they do want to gain muscle. It really takes a lot of calories to keep this engine going. Like I'm 6'1", 190. I think I need a good 3,200 calories just to maintain. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
very hard to get that on vegan. And that's why it's very easy to lose weight when you go vegan. Like
Right.
almost everybody I've ever seen go vegan, they will lose a significant amount of weight very quickly. And if you're eating very nutrient dense foods, like you're fine because you know you're getting all the micronutrients and all the, you know, all the fiber, all the water, all the vitamins, minerals. And if you do it wrong, you know, of course you can do it wrong by eating.
You can be a
you know,
very unhealthy vegan too.
just a bunch of, well, I eat a lot of bread, you know, just that's vegan, but
bread and French fries. Yeah.
bread and French fries. Yeah. Beer is vegan too, right?
Probably.
Some vegan
Probably,
beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to find a balance. So if I'm not lifting, maybe I go a couple days without lifting, then I'll maybe tend to be a little bit more vegan naturally. I don't even really have to think about it at this point, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Once you kind of start down that path, I don't think tons of people go back heavy on the, you know, lots and lots of red meats and heavy. I mean, I can see if you're specifically trying to gain a lot of muscle, you might go back down that road, but your body gets used to not having those, you know, certain things, and you get used to the flavors and the texture profiles of, you know, if I'm eating a almond cheese or something. And so, and I have loved not only the energy and the feeling, like I feel like it changes my skin and everything. Like I really do think it has an impact on, like, from head to toe, my body.
Yeah,
So.
I would agree. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed as well. I was also juicing a lot of carrots, and carrots have a lot of vitamin A. And for a couple of days I did turn orange. And then after that, I actually got comments. Like I got 2 comments in 1 week. Wow, your skin looks great. And never in my life before and never since have I ever gotten any skin comments. It's just, my skin is what it is. But
yeah, I feel that too. About once a month, I will do a juice cleanse, and I just do a very small scale. I know people do week longs. I'll do a day. I have a local place here that I love, and I have it on autopilot. If I didn't, the consistency wouldn't be there because I would forget or I would delay it or whatever. And I just love that, like, it's going to happen every month.
How do they do it on autopilot? Do they just send it to you, or do they call you? Hey, come on in, or?
So they nudge me. It's an app down the street. It's a Clean Juice, if you have those in your area. And I'm subscribed. So I subscribe for 6 months at a time. I'm subscribed to the Cleanse Club. So that, you know, that means they charge me for it on a monthly basis. And then they nudge me through an email saying, hey, don't forget, go schedule your cleanse. I just pop on the date that I'm going to pick it up in the next week or so. And then I actually do the cleanse the following day. So I go pick it up through the drive-through. It's like a mile from my house. And I just pick a day when I know I can actually do the cleanse. But sometimes that's hard with 2 kids and a really full sports schedule. I mean, it's not unusual. This past cleanse a week ago, I packed 2 of my juices in a little cooler in my car to go watch. I think I was on a baseball night and a soccer night. So I did finish the second part of my cleanse night at the fields. And so packing a little cooler and drinking my beet juice, and then my water, and then my whatever was after that one. And so it's another commitment thing. It's another sacrifice thing. Like everybody else is sitting around eating nachos and sodas at the baseball game, and I'm like drinking my beet juice, but it's worth it for me. I love the way it feels every single time.
And that's great.
So I love the consistency.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then that you can do it just once a month. So like, you know, you're not going to get like, oh my God, I want those nachos. It's like, yeah, I can have some tomorrow if I want. Right.
Right.
And then also that's pretty sweet. That's a cool business model that you can just drive through and get your juices.
Oh yeah.
That's
I love it.
Awesome.
But it is like one day I'm like, okay, I tell my family I'm on a cleanse today, and never fail. They forget. The night I'm talking about, I went to one of our pro MLS games that night, and random weeknight game. And one of my seat buddies, my neighbors, we've been season ticket holders for 10 years. And our neighbors, his kind of routine is to get me a beer when he goes to the beer place. And I sat down and he handed me a beer, and I was like, thank you. And I just handed it to the guy behind me, my friend. I'm like, I'm on a cleanse.
Got my beet juice.
Somebody brings back pizza slices. I'm like, well, I wouldn't eat that anyway, but I'm like, no, I'm on a cleanse. Remember, like, I'm not doing this. So that was tricky. That was a little bit hard, but I did it. I'm like, I can do anything for 24 hours. I mean, yeah, like you
Yeah,
said, I can eat
exactly.
it all tomorrow, but I don't ever want it tomorrow, because once you've done a cleanse, you don't have
You
the
lose the
cravings.
desire. Exactly. And that's what I tell people is like, if you still crave pizza, go for it. Eat pizza. That just means you have a little bit more work to do to clean out your body, because when your body's clean, you don't want that pizza. Like, trust me, that pizza looks like death. It just
Yeah.
looks absolutely disgusting.
And you just lose so much ground. That's another tip I heard from a friend who does cleanses. When I actually go through the drive-through and pick up my cleanse, I get an acai bowl for lunch that day. So that way I'm like kind of getting a head start that
Yeah, it sort of
I
preps
will
you
eat
into
an
that.
acai bowl for hours, just kind of nibble at it. And I love it. First of all, it's really good, but it's organic, and it's just a nice, like, filling meal to kind of prep me for that next day of a cleanse.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
cool, I like that idea. And that might be good to come off a cleanse too, the following day after a cleanse, something that's a little,
Yeah.
little more calorie dense, but
Yeah.
healthy calorie density.
Sometimes I run into the shop, and any freshly cold pressed juices that are going to expire within the next 2 days or whatever, they're on. And so sometimes I'll get an extra juice, and that'll be my breakfast the next day
Oh, that's cool.
to, like, extend it,
That's very cool. That's a great idea. I want to go back to what you said about protein. We got some good kind of strategies for people, right? Protein, smoothies, drinks like that, and then doing a cleanse once a month. I really like that as a very practical, it's very real world. You can throw it in your real world once a month cleanse. The protein. So was this yesterday or Saturday? I think it was yesterday. Time just like kids. So yesterday I was kind of famished. It was like noon. I had breakfast, but it wasn't very big, and I was just really hungry by noon. And I had worked out the day before, so I had some protein. I had some yogurt. It's not vegan, but it was pretty healthy. There's only 3 ingredients in the yogurt, and 15-gram protein yogurt in a little jar, and then I mixed that with some peanut butter and a bunch of protein powder because I was so hungry, and I was like, I'm gonna eat like some cotton candy and some Twizzlers and some Twinkies right now if I don't satiate myself. So I think I put in like 45 grams of protein, and again, like 6'1", 190, like, but if you're short, obviously modify it, but just to give people an idea of like, you might need more than one serving, because I ate that full thing. Oh, I felt so good for like
Yeah.
3-4 hours. And it went from literally, I'm going to like gnaw my son's arm off, to completely satiated, comfortable, feeling great.
Yep.
Whereas if I went after the bread or the chips or anything like that, that's just sort of like crap food,
Instant.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have done anything. I would have been hungry 5 minutes later.
Right. But
So
quickly you might have felt good because you were eating something.
sure.
But
Right.
yeah, it wouldn't have lasted, and you wouldn't have felt great later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So protein really I'm not really much of a nutrition tracker. I just think it gets tedious and boring. That's just my personal opinion. I have great respect for people who do track,
I
but I
don't
do
either.
track protein. I will always track protein, especially on weightlifting days.
Uh-huh.
And there's a range, 0.75 grams per pound of body weight, up to like
Yeah.
1 gram per pound. And if I hit 1 gram, I don't know how loud that motorcycle was, but if I hit 1 gram per pound of body weight, those are the day. I mean, I don't get hungry. I don't feel famished. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah. I don't ever worry about over proteining.
Right.
That would be really hard for me to do. I about every other day, workout wise, some strength training, and then on the other days, I'm usually just doing like a long walk or jog, just to kind of let my body rest. I had ankle surgery a year ago this month, and so I've had to learn to change it up, to not be running and sprinting and doing like really stressful things on my ankle because I feel hurting again. Anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But I don't worry about eating too much protein. I feel like the more the better for me, since I don't eat animal protein. It's
Right.
it's like
Clean,
it's
right?
hard for me
Easy
to
to
get too
digest.
much. And it because another thing I will do, just an example you gave, I will do those protein balls. I'm balling up peanut butter, some protein powder. They're kind of different every time, but the very basics, some oats and different things, just stuff that I can have one little one. I keep them in the fridge or the freezer, and that's a really good sweet treat. And I feel like I've had something good, but it fills me up. It's the stickiness of the peanut butter and a little bit of protein because it's peanut butter and the protein powder. Those are like another go-to poppable thing. And I can pack those and go if I need to take some with me to be smart on the go.
That's awesome. That's great. Hey, I want to invite you to one of my classes then. If you hurt your ankle, my online, I do everything on Zoom now, and we spend 50 minutes out of an hour on our backs, on our stomach. It's all core, and
Oh,
we hit the
cool.
whole body, no equipment, and you're not even on the foot. So
Love
if you
it.
need like
Yeah.
a month or two where you're not going to put any stress on that ankle, that might be a good option for you.
I mean, I would love it, but I'm past that point. I mean, it's been a year since I've actually had it done. The year leading up to that was when I just kept going on it too much and it really did injure it. But I got it cleaned out and bone spurs removed and all that stuff. So I use it. I'm fully allowed to do whatever I want with
Nice.
it. I just have to know, I just know that I have to kind of rotate the types of workouts that I'm doing. I can't go do a bar Pilates class every day where I'm putting a lot of stress on my ankles or, you know, different things like that.
Right,
So
right.
I've one of the things I've learned over the last few years is how to kind of change up my workout plan, but that I like to be active every day, but doing a nice floor core class counts. I love that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm somebody, I don't know if I ever mentioned this last time either, but I didn't know until really late in life that that now I'm going blank on what it's called, that my abdomens were like, you know, from my C-section, that my stomach muscles never grew back together. I'm completely blanking on what it's called. Haven't had to think about it in a while, which is good. But part of my journey was being told by a PT that, oh yeah, they're separated right here for like 4 inches, and had to doing a lot of learning on how to get back to where my stomach actually could get flat instead of protruding outward when I, you know, doing all the years of crunches that I thought was not working. And I didn't know that until like 40 years old. It's crazy that I learned that as an older person. It's kind of sad that I think a lot of women do that. They don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of men too. It's, you know, you can get away with a lot of crappy workouts when you're young because your body responds to anything. But as you get older, you have less room to make mistakes.
Yes, for sure.
So Kelly, we're going to wrap it up in a minute. I want to give you a chance, just like the first podcast, to, you know, we've talked a lot of specifics, strategies, what you do, things like that. Let's go bigger picture. What would be kind of like a motivational 1 to 2 minute talk that you would give somebody as far as maybe motivation or values or anything that will kind of get people going on their health mission and kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak?
Great. Yeah. So my advice really centers around a few things. For me, part of the realization to get myself healthy in more ways than one was kind of understanding that balancing all the things in my life wasn't really a possibility. It wasn't a realistic expectation for me to try to stick with, because working, being a wife, being a mom, being healthy, being athletic, all the different things, being a volunteer at school, volunteer in the community. There's so many ways that I can like go down different paths and spend my time and energy, and the whole balancing it all. I don't think it's possible to balance it all. I had to really like make decisions on what are the things that I should be doing, want to be doing, and making time for that are best for me, and peeling the other things away. Some of that is sacrificing things that you love. Some of it is sacrificing things that other people tell you love because you've been doing them for a while, and but you helped with this and you do this you can say no to those things and really stop the effort of trying to balance 8 things and just do some of 2 or 3 things really well, you know? So not feeling like I had to be all the things to everybody was a big deal. Just kind of having to grow up and figure that out. And another thing that helps me is saying it out loud, what I'm up to. When I'm fairly private. And so when I'm doing something kind of on my own in my own little bubble, I realize it doesn't have as much of a staying power or impact as if I tell others what I'm doing. So that includes my inner circle of family and friends, but also those on social media who may never met me and may never will. I still tell people what I struggle with, or what my goals are, what I'm working on at the time, because I do feel like there's accountability. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit, that you're accountable, but just repeating it to others makes it makes it true. Whether it's no thanks, I'm not going to do this pizza night. I'm, eating this way or whatever. And being confident and saying it out loud and having the reasons why, and you're okay with those reasons, and maybe even helping educate others why you're doing that, this and that. So, those are my big tips, sort of figuring out what you need to focus on to hit your goals to make yourself feel good. And that might mean taking some other things away from your plate. And then, saying it out loud and meaning it. And so that others hear you and see you doing what you're saying you're doing. And then you feel better when you really do feel accomplished when you kind of say no out loud to someone for something that you shouldn't eat or do, or, take your focus away.
Nice. Absolutely. So Kelly, how does somebody get in touch with you? What's the name of your podcast again?
So the name of the podcast is Hustle and Pro. There's a website, hustleandpro.com. My contact info is there, but I'm also at Hustle and Pro on Twitter, Hustle and Pro with some underscores in between the words on Instagram, Kelly Walker on LinkedIn. So those are kind of the main ways. I'm mostly on Instagram. That's kind of where I live the most if I'm checking out social media. And I'm posting things about my personal life because a lot of it does center around sports, how I eat and stay healthy and fitness, but then also all the sports things, the local sports life that I was talking about. So yeah, I'd love somebody to come check us out, hustleandpro.com.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. Again, Kelly Walker on the Health in the Real World podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.